Good afternoon, everybody. We're back again, Grace and Jonathan. And today we just thought we'd have a discussion. I think we need to look at some of the social issues about where we're going to live. We're looking at the Philippines, perhaps. And that's one of the topics we're going to discuss today. And I think every day for the next week, we're going to look at different topics. Maybe like the generation gap you see here, what that's like, and so forth. So let's just start off with this idea that we have that we'd like to go and live in the Philippines. And we need to look at the pros and cons, whether the Philippines would be a right suit for us or not. So, Grace, I haven't rehearsed anything with Grace. I really would like to see what's in her mind and what her thinking is. But likewise, as the person is responsible for Grace, I need to also let her understand what my thinking is. And then if we can match the two and we can get to the Philippines, well, that will be great, eh? So let's just start off. So, Grace, you've been in Africa for 1 year now, in South Africa.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a new marriage. Things are very difficult. It's all about change, isn't it? It's a new country, new language, new foods. So if you had a choice, looking at where you've been living right now for the last year, and thinking about what you grew up and what you used to, what would you choose? Philippines or South Africa?
Philippines.
Straight out,
Yeah,
Philippines.
Philippines.
Is it? And give us the reasons why. And let's break those reasons down. What's one reason?
Because my family was living there.
Okay. So it's because you've got your parents there
Yeah.
and you're missing them. Okay. But how often do you speak to your parents right now?
Um, Before always, but now 2 weeks, sometimes once.
Okay. So, yeah. So basically, when you got WhatsApp and you got Facebook, you've got access to your family all the time.
But the problem is we don't use WhatsApp. Only Facebook and Messenger.
Yeah. But you could use those, which
Yeah.
is what you do use to speak to your relatives. Okay. So you've got access to your family as much as you want. And this is my point. You've already got access to your family on a daily basis. And even now, you don't really make use of that. You now maybe speak to them once every 3-4 days, once a week. Okay, so there is that thinking about being close to those you love.
Yeah.
And yes, it would be nice to have them around. But it's a big move to go live in the Philippines, especially when you consider taking a foreigner there.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's practical for a person like myself, now that you know me a lot better, to be living in the Philippines? Like, for instance, where your parents are.
I think it is practical.
You think so?
Yeah. Because you're more secure because my family is there.
Yeah, but can you imagine? I mean, I was there for 6 weeks, and then when I went back and collected you after we got our relatives visa to come here, for 2 weeks. So I was there all in all, basically 2 months. But in that 2 months, your parents, even yourself, didn't even want me to go anywhere on my own.
Yeah.
Why?
Because before we married, we heard about that television when that watching news,
Mm.
even in YouTube, that some of foreigner who's living there are they had fiance in Philippines.
Mm.
They scam and sometimes they um steal the money that they have. Sometimes they kidnap. So it's really dangerous for me as and also to my family that you go anywhere alone.
Okay, so now that was then, right? So this is my point. Imagine me going to want to live there. I can't even go out and about where you live. I know lots of the viewers are going to say, oh, but the Philippines are safe. It's very safe there. But it might be safe in some places, but obviously where Grace's folks live, they didn't think it was safe enough for me to be out and about on my own.
Yeah.
So that tells me that would I really want to go live in a place where I don't have free movement? And you could say, well, go to a place where, you know, you can have free movement. Maybe 𝗬𝗛𝗀𝗘 or 𝗬𝗛𝗀𝗃 or Davao. But the point is, that's not where your parents are, is it?
Mm.
That's not where your family, that's not what the area. You know the province areas of South Cotabato. Eh?
Yeah.
So that is the reason why I say, and I think in the back of my mind, it's not practical for us to go and live permanently in the Philippines because of the safety issue. Even your parents were worried for my safety. Now, personally, I didn't really feel that.
Really?
I didn't feel unsafe when I was there. I did go out a few times on my own. I did have one incident when I was stalked. There was a guy that just drove his motorbike, and I tried to lose him, but he kept on following me. So I did have one little incident that I wondered, but he could have just been just a very curious person, wondering what's this person doing here. I don't know if he had any bad intent, but I did pick up on it. And obviously, coming from Africa, I've grown up like really watching everybody, your surroundings, because you have to. So, and unlike the UK, where people that have grown up there have got no fear, and therefore, I know even if you go in the supermarkets, they don't even look up to see who's about and who's around them. They just go about their daily business, just totally unaware of their surroundings.
Mm.
Now, if you tried to do that in Africa, the people would pick up on it and you would get ripped off very quickly. So I'm quite used to, wherever I go, understanding the security issues and who's about, what their body language is and so forth. So what I am thinking though is I would like to go and live in the Philippines, but I don't think permanently. I think while I'm still younger and stronger and fitter enough maybe to take on 1, 2, or 3 Filipinos, if they do try to, do whatever they want to do, I think as you age, you're not going to feel that you're capable of it. So, your self-defense would be an issue. And I don't want to go live in the Philippines if I'm just stuck in a house or if I have to be escorted everywhere around. So that's really the issue. But I also did find the language a difficulty because, yes, people can speak English to an extent, but you cannot really have a full-blown conversation with them. It's basically will be on a very low level of discussion. How are you? How are you doing? And that's about it. You can't get into any in-depth discussion with anybody there. So for me, I kind of like that, where you can talk to people and have like a deeper conversation. And just having these short, small conversations with Filipinos would be, on a long-term basis, very difficult for me. I think I'd need more than that. Now, I understand from your point of view, you having to do the opposite. You having to come here and you having to learn English. Like, I haven't really given you a choice. You just had to learn it to have these deeper conversations with people. And you've done very well in doing that. So you've put the effort in to learn English. Now, could I learn, what's the language? Sabonga or Talago or
Tagalog.
Tagalog? I can't. I seriously, I would maybe be able to learn the basics, but I couldn't have an in-depth conversation with anybody. Um, and that does sound bad, but living in South Africa, there's a multitude of languages here as well. And even in school, there were during apartheid era, there was two languages, and one was obviously English, and the other one was Afrikaans. But because it was apartheid, Afrikaans was the one that was pushed. But you know what? Even though it was, you had to pass that to pass your end of year certificate. I just couldn't do it. So I've had a long history of not being able to speak other languages. Regarding the black languages, you know, I've picked up the basic words, and I've learned to understand more or less what they're saying, and to be able to kind of half follow a conversation. But I've had to do that because, you know, in business, you know, in getting things done, you had to have a team of people to do it. And if they were speaking that language, you had to kind of pick up on it. But likewise, I could never actually master any of them. And the problem too is in this country, there's 19 of them. So how can you learn all 19? You know, it's crazy. So that's another point. So it's the kind of security aspect, and then it's the aspect of, you know, communicating with people. So I understand it'll be very nice for you to go home and be with your family, and I wish they were just a bit closer, so we could visit them more often. Because at the minute we're kind of looking about going there once every 2 years. However, we are thinking of going there for a period, and we just don't know when that period is going to start, because we have, you know, things to sort out here first. But I could see myself living there for a couple of years. A couple of years, which would be nice. And obviously there would be benefits, like especially if we have children. You know, your mother could look after the children. I could see a great benefit with that. All right. So what are other things that would make us want to go to the Philippines though?
First of all, oh, I miss my food.
Okay, the food. Yeah. So she does. She laments about the food. Yeah. Although, you know, she does cook her Filipino food, yeah. So you do get the ingredients, yeah, to a certain extent. But I think it's more than that. It's eating it with people who are enjoying it. Because what she tends to do, in the beginning, we used to eat the same food, but slowly over the months, she kind of prepares one type of meal for me, and she has her kind of meal. Not that I've pushed that, have I? It's just she just wants to please me, I suppose. And she wants to cook what I like to eat. So that's the way it's just turned out. And she loves cooking, so she doesn't mind making 2, 3, 4, 10 dishes. She doesn't mind doing that at all. And then she'll eat what she wants to eat, and she'll give me what I like to eat. So it kind of works out very well. But I do understand what you're saying. To sit down at a table with a whole lot of other Filipinos, you know, and get stuck into the food that they all like. That's a nice social bonding. Eh?
Yeah.
All right. The other thing that comes up a lot on these channels is the cost of living. Now, I'm at two minds whether the cost of living, will it be cheaper for us to live in the Philippines or to live here, or for instance to live in the UK. Now obviously I think the UK is going to be a lot more expensive,
Alright.
but living in South Africa, I think it's pretty much on a par with living in the Philippines. So when people argue and say, listen, come to the Philippines because it's so much cheaper, I think that's because they're looking at it from an American point of view. Yeah. So yes, UK, America, it would be cheaper in the Philippines. But South Africa versus the Philippines?
Philippines.
I know there are some things that are cheaper in the Philippines, like the electronics. Um, but the food is pretty much the same cost.
Yeah.
So whether you're eating here or eating in the Philippines, it's the same. Accommodation, well, we've got accommodation here, so we're not really worried about accommodation. If we went to the Philippines, yeah, that would be a concern. What kind of accommodation and where it would be. So we have kind of put our feelers out, and Grace has found us 2 properties, eh?
Yeah.
So she's quite eager to go. She's found us 2 properties where basically we can stay for free, where people have moved to the UK and they just want somebody to look after their houses. So I think, if we were going for a couple of years, something like that would be ideal.
Yeah.
I have seen on the blogger people from the United States or wherever buy property in the Philippines and build a house. Now, that I can never see myself doing. I mean, I've built, I think, 7 properties.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't like building. I love building. It's just that I also understand when you build something, there's 2-3 years of construction and settling down and getting everything established, which is pretty stressful.
Yeah.
Okay. And on top of that, once you've built it, you're pretty much stuck there. And I think in the kind of fluid situation that the world is in, I don't really want to get stuck in one place. Especially if I can find properties that people want somebody to look after and take care of
Yeah.
for a year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever. And I'm sure there'll always be those type of properties. But we are quite fortunate because we are part of a network of a large organization where there's, you just have to put the word out that you're coming and you need accommodation. And they run around and find you accommodation. So that's quite good. Having said that, though, we've had some nasty surprises, let's say, call it that, where we go to the Philippines and we talk to the locals and they say, no problem, come and everything will be sorted out, your accommodation, what you want to do, only to get there and to find nothing's really been sorted out. Nothing's been sorted out, and it's all come at a great cost. All of a sudden, they now say, or they just don't say anything. They just look and say, this is going to cost 8,000 pesos, or this is going to cost 5,000 pesos. That was never discussed. That was never come up. So you've always got that in your back of your mind, that even if somebody says, there's this accommodation for you, come and have it, or we'd like you to stay in it, be very careful, to be 100% sure that that is in fact for free, or it's at a lower price, or there's no strings attached, or whatever the case may be. So I'm not saying we're not going to the Philippines. I'm just saying I doubt it will be on a permanent basis, number one. Because long term, we've got to think about getting you to the UK.
Yeah.
And I think because that would be beneficial for us, health-wise, financially, get pension or whatever, if we end up in the UK.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like to be doing that now. I think maybe in 5 to 10 years' time. That would be like a very long-term plan. But it's something you've got to keep in the back of your mind. So don't establish yourself so much in the Philippines that now you've got the problem. You've got all this stuff in the Philippines, and you're pushing off to the UK, or you're coming back to South Africa, or whatever the case may be. So those are some of the things I was thinking about. Another good thing about living in the Philippines is actually, like I've said already, that having your folks there if we have children, but also the travel in Asia. I haven't been to Vietnam or Cambodia or any of those places, and I mean, you keep talking about South Korea. I don't know why South Korea. Japan. So, those are the kind of places that people in the Philippines talk about. Versus, if we in the UK, we look at Europe. If you're in Africa, you look about going a little bit further north to Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe. You're never thinking about Japan. So, yeah, if you are living in the Philippines, you've got that access to those other countries,
Yeah.
which would be quite good. I did find the Philippines, though, I've mentioned this before, quite expensive to travel from. So even to fly in and about the Philippines, it's not very reasonable. I don't think it is. Not very cheap. For instance, to travel from here to Cape Town, it's about 1,500 kilometers, and it takes about an hour and a half to fly there. But that costs about $30. Now, to fly from Davao to Manila, that was in the region of $140.
Really?
And it's about the same distance. So to fly in Africa is a lot cheaper than to fly in the Philippines. And that's why I also don't think it's that great to travel around in. Now, so we looked at the positives. What are the negatives about living in the Philippines?
Maybe because the expensive there.
Well, I wouldn't say it's expensive because it's basically the same price as here. Or it might even be a little bit cheaper, certain things. But what about, and we looked at the dangers, of course, but, the poverty, it's another thing as a bit of a family, if you want to do anything there, it's not like you can just call the family, let's all go out for a dinner.
Yeah.
Because if you all go out for a dinner, 20 or 30 people, who do you think is going to pay? Hey, Grace? So there is that issue. Even if you got your family around, you can't do too much with them, because if you're going to do anything with them, you're going to be paying for all of them.
Yeah.
And that means you're not going to be able to do much. All right, so that's a bit of the poverty situation where nobody's really got money to go and buy luxuries or to go and travel around. The biggest probably issue, though, for me that concerns me is the heat. I just about died when I was there.
Yeah, the heat,
Yeah.
the noise.
Okay, so the heat, you at the minimum you got to have a fan blowing on you 24/7. If you put an aircon on, well, that's nice, but as soon as you go outside, it's terrible, because then you really feel it. So you constantly are showering.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody there walks around without a shirt on. And I don't look very pretty with a shirt off. Eh? So, the heat is a big problem for me. What was the other thing? The noise.
The
Oh,
noise.
goodness, the noise. We live in a place that's so nice and quiet, although you can hear the dogs barking, the neighbors just come in. But there, the noise, the motorbikes, they make, and they don't stop the whole day, the whole night. The roosters, that is terrible. The noise of the roosters, all the whole night. They don't know when sun rises, because they start at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
But even 12 midday, they're still making that noise.
Mm.
So the roosters there, I don't know, they do have time issue problems. They don't know that it's sunrise or when sunrise is. Okay, and then the other issue is the dangers on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I rode a motorbike, and I actually love the chaos, and I love the fact that there's no rules, and the fact that you can ride around without a helmet. I mean, to me, that's just pure heaven. However, I mean, while we were there, 2 people that we know, that were killed on motorbikes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just while we were there, in that 6 weeks. 2. So it's they're dying all the time there with those motorbikes. So it's a serious problem. And, you know, do we want to risk that?
No.
Especially when you know that the medical care there is not going to be great unless you spend a lot of money. But particularly where you are in the province, I mean, how difficult it is to get to a hospital, hey?
Yeah.
I mean, they do have facilities that, if you can, but if it's an emergency, if you know if your life depends on the first 20 minutes of that accident, do you think you're going to get help?
No.
So those are some of the issues that I have with even thinking about going to the Philippines. It's a bit scary, okay? So yes, I would do it for you out of love, but you must know it's coming at a huge expense. And I can think of far easier and better places to be. Now, I haven't taken you to all these places. So I think what you need to do is just wait a little bit. Continue chatting to your mom and dad on the Facebook and the friends and as much as you want. And we are hoping to go next year to the Philippines. So that'll be great. But whether we can go stay there permanently, it's still up. You know, that's a big question mark. But definitely, I'd like to stay there for at least a year or two,
Yeah.
just to experience. I mean, there's a lot to experience there. I love the food. I love the friendly people. Um, there's so many things to like about the Philippines, but there's also a lot of dangers. Okay, and maybe if you're younger, you kind of risk adverse. But I'm really, you know, the older you get, the more you just want to hold on to what you've got, and you just want to be safe. Right. Okay, so that's our thinking about the Philippines. It's divided between Grace, a yes, and me, a no, at this moment. But definitely, I'd love to visit, and definitely, I'd like to be there a few years. But having been there, I think it'll be very difficult. And also, there's probably one other aspect I could mention is, you know, if you marry a younger Filipina and she's very tied to her family, you and her friends, it's quite difficult then to have any kind of say in what happens, because they just will gang up on you and just it'll be a big family thing, and you'll have absolutely, I'm not saying control, but you know, it won't be you and your wife. It'll be you and her family. So, you know, you'll be dealing with a lot of issues and a lot of people and of a lot of gossip and whatever goes on in the Philippines. So there's that aspect that I much prefer it where she's here. You know, she can develop as a person on her own. She can develop as my wife and not have any of those interferences. And, you know, have to deal with the day-to-day issues that comes with being a wife or a house, you know, having to look after your own house and having to look after your own budget and so forth. So there's that aspect as well. Anyway, guys, so we're going to talk on these very personal issues from time to time because we hope that anybody that's thinking of going to the Philippines, you know, will have another perspective. Because I know you always hear people saying, come, 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 you're going to enjoy it, it's the best. And I think for some people it might be, and especially coming from America, it will be cheaper. But for us, for now, I think, you know, we do have other options, and we will not want to explore those options first, and then share our thinking with yourselves. So this is one of the topics we're going to discuss. Like I said, there's one about aging, and is there any difference? And there's going to be many more that we can discuss with yourself. And this way, at least we're also getting Grace's perspective. All right. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard, we'd appreciate if you
like,
yeah,
subscribe,
please.
push the notification bell, and link
Link.
our
And
link.
yeah, and share with others, and look at the other ones that we've been doing. We've been to a few places, and we'll be going to other places. And we're going up to Johannesburg to go to a Chinese business expose.
Yeah,
So we'll see how that goes, and then of course there's a nice zoo up there, so we're going to go and have a look at that, and we'll show you, we'll share with you what
yeah.
we're doing. All right, guys, keep well. Cheers then.
Bye.
Bye.